live. Okay, hey guys, that's my introduction. So, shall we start?
Right, just straight into it then. Okay.
Oh yes, this is Mr. Ben Vasselin, everybody. Since I just don't really care much for introductions. So, and hopefully you know who I am. If you're watching this, you know who I am. So yes.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about today, Mr. Ben?
Well, something in the title. We're going to go through the KEIRSEY INTj Mastermind profile. And one of the reasons this profile is so good, in my opinion, is that David KEIRSEY Sr. and David KEIRSEY Jr. Well, Senior is now rest in peace. So he was an INTp. I believe he was an INTp. And he thought it was an INTp, and his son thought it was. And his son is like, I'll do an impression of what Wojtek says about his type, but I'll clean it up a bit. And he had a conversation with him about physics, and he said afterwards, he is INTp as fuck. I've cleaned that up a bit. I made it a bit Irish. Right. So we'll have a look at this. And then he interviewed this guy who didn't think he was INTj, and then he said the same thing. And he was there smiling, talking about not being an INTj in like the most INTj way ever. And I had a big smile on his face, and he laid his back, and he goes, back. So that was just like his catchphrase. So over to the it would be funny if I said the full F word, but I'm not going there. Right.
Ben, I so much in this hangout. If you say it once, I'm sure we will. Yeah, we will be okay.
Right. Okay. So can you? Yeah. No. It's you have.
I'm gonna click. Yeah, I'm gonna click on your screen.
Yeah. You see, that's the thing. Now the audience will be deprived of your.
They have enough videos of my tits and ass. They'll be fine.
Okay. Right. So I'll let you read through that to yourself, and then you can please comment on I suppose in two ways, both the profile in itself and then how it relates to you or maybe other INTJs, you know, general, whatever you believe is relevant.
Your notes. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm keep reading.
Well, if you like my notes, I've sent you enough things.
Then I just see a little maybe smile.
Well, because the little smiley face. My suggestive Effie.
Yeah. Okay.
Was it a bit about planning the family vacation in Europe? Was it that?
Yes.
It's a little bit of the theory of Jim Perret, which I think is absolutely right for the Alpha Quadra. So that's the NTPs and the SFJs, about how humor works for them, where it's a combination of mental imagery. So just the, you know, things, images in the mind, and relations between things and ideas. And so just the idea there of like a hardcore INTJ planning things to a T in the same dedication. And of course, one of the reasons he mentions this is that David KEIRSEY Sr., rest in peace, was in World War II as a fighter pilot in the Pacific. And so the war was a big experience for him. and an example of how a non-typological factor can change someone. So, for instance, that being a fighter pilot, not usual for an INTp, and he said that when he was a fighter pilot, he thinks all the fighter pilots around him were SPs, and his brother was an SP, liked to go out fighting. His parents were SPs, and of course, after World War II, he tried to help SPs a lot. And if more people had actually listened to him, they would have followed his advice for an educational system where if you identify what he called the artisan temperament, called it the Dionysian temperament, Greek reference there. Like in 1978, he called it the Dionysian temperament, and then in 1998, he called it the artisan temperament. And where, more vocational training, so hands-on learning for the SPs. So that's about him, but we got to get back on track to.
Well, you know what? I don't know if it was you who initially told me, or if I read this somewhere, but I did read that INTJs, and I guess, I don't know, this is speculation, INFJs, we are supposedly shitty fighter pilots, or just, for example, when I have to drive somewhere, I think we've talked about this before, because I'll get somewhere, or I'll road, I'll be like, holy fuck, I don't even remember passing these things that I've driven this way days and days and days, and I know those, buildings and whatnot are behind me. I get so lost in my mind thinking about stuff, and I can't even imagine being in a plane being shot at. I'm sure my mind would be there a little bit more.
Yeah. Yes, that's the thing. It's the fear. That's I cycle and sometimes forget about it, but the fear definitely concentrates the mind. And yes, and Dario in his book 8 Keys to Self-Leadership, which is one of my favorites, and I recommend that although for Hailey to buy a book, it would have to be extremely good. The ratio of goodness to price would have to be extremely high. Extremely. 1,000 to 1.
Such a tight one.
That would have to be it would have to be like Feld's book of hypertrophy for 1 cent. That would probably tempt you.
That PDF online, so.
Yeah, but we've got the context.
True, but it's enough to keep me busy until I eventually realize that it's important to find.
I look at it. It was 200 pages, and looking at it, and I get the idea that he could write a much fuller book than that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Right, so
I think that book is more geared at people who aren't in the PhD mentality, who for him to go into detail. Aren't at his level are going to understand it. So if he's writing a book to be sold, to make profit, he's going to want people to understand it.
I think what we can do is, although this is technically not part of the profile, it is something that's important. So what I will slightly bring in is, now this is still from Please Understand Me Too, but it explains the difference between NTJs and NTPs. And this gives you, and I suppose what we'll do is we'll concentrate on this bit here about the NTJs, because this is because KEIRSEY didn't do functions. Now, he had a proper intellectual reason for not doing functions. It wasn't that he was simplistic. He had a completely different philosophy. His philosophy was holism and system field theory, where he believed that it was very difficult to break things down into elements, and he thought that that was reductionist, and that things happen in fields, and fields interact with the environment, and you have to look at things in wholes, things like that. And he was against what he called 19th century elementalism. But you see, the thing is, most INTPs know their models because they're familiar with other models. Certain other types that might get stuck with one model and think this is the truth and take it literally. No, it's just a model. So it's always good to know at least two models of personality, so you don't get too locked in to one of them. And of course, now, for instance, as you've learned about Enneagram 5, you've learned things about yourself and others that's like giving you this like whole new angle that sort of makes you think, of course. And of course, Enneagram people would benefit. Like, say you're an Enneagram person and you're just knowing about the Enneagram 5. I mean, you really do need to know about the differences between INTp and INTj. You know, to like see the differences amongst the 5s. So those three things together, like knowing the difference between INTp and INTj, and then knowing the Enneagram 5, powerful combination of knowledge for understanding yourself. What do you reckon? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're really the one leading this hangout, so I'm just here to listen.
Oh.
No, I mean, I agree.
Well, I mean, look, I remember, like, if folks, so for instance, the Enneagram 5. I mean, when we do the, like, eventually, like, after about 20 minutes, it's like you don't say much in hangout because like you're too busy reading, and it's like as we did, I just sort of adapted. Okay, let's have Hailey read this because I wanted to get into the Enneagram, and so it was just like a live reading session. That hangout.
Yeah, kind of.
It's still gone okay though, not because the audience that's interested in that would want to read it as well, because hardly anyone will buy the book. Buy it. Yeah. Personality types. Their website, and I think you may have gone to their website. It's the EnneagramInstitute.com, the Riso and Hudson website. So, what do you think of this then?
So I still need to get through it.
Okay.
So this is specifically talking to NTPs, is that right?
No, this is about NTJs. And the reason why I show this to people is that this is like a concrete example of what NI is when it's applied, because socionics, or Galenko calls it intuition of time. And so, as you see here, this gives a specific example of that. You don't need to comment just yet because it gets clearer as it goes along. I do realise that initially it's a bit of a poser.
Hello?
Yep. There we go.
Next page? Do you have the next page?
Oh yeah, next page, yes. Yes, I have the next page. Getting a little bit of an impression. Yes, Ben, I can see how it might have been an INTp. And I can see how you might be as well, giving you a little diagram at the top there.
Scroll up.
Yep.
What's that L? It's in your notes. It says base of the architect profile typed by Victor Galenko is L.
Oh, L minus.
Bracket?
It basically means TI minus. He came up with his own Galenko code.
Okay.
Oh, you know what I once did? As a joke, I came up with the Galenko code, where I like used different letters, like in the STP, and then I got them to spell out their name. A little bit cheeky, because like the letters transposed to Dick. I sort of went into an ENTP mode where I had someone work out what their letter code would be. No, I very, very rarely do that. Because I said that SE was D, and and TI was I, and then FE was C, and then got them to work it out, and then and I didn't realise. Oh dear, that was a little bit cheeky of me.
Can you scroll up?
Right,
Or down?
That's pretty much it.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting carried away reading. You want to
So,
switch
yeah,
over back to
Yeah. So, what did you think about that? What do you think of that about how he's made it concrete?
I think you're the only well, I know like NT and F, but as far as like NTP, NTJ, you're like the only NTP I think I know. Other than yourself, I really many INTPs or NTPs to be able to relate this to. Or
I mean, I suppose I'm a little bit different from most INTPs.
yeah, from what I read.
Oh, have people been talking about me?
No. I mean, as far as INTP, like if you were just to read a basic profile, INTP.
I mean, that bit's true. Whilst that's all true, it doesn't capture the full bendness, I suppose. Whereas...
No, it absolutely does not.
Whereas some of the Enneagram does, like if you go with like Enneagram 4.
Yeah, that's true.
So what I say about
Go ahead.
What I say about the INTP profile, it captures how I think, but not what I think. I mean, a lot of it is just, so for instance, multi-angle thinking, looking at things from different angles. Yes, but I'm also interested in like creative things and humor, things like that. Whereas I do bang on about NTP-ish things like end the Fed, things like that. But also there's the comedy aspect.
Yes, back to what we initially made this hangout about. Sorry, folks.
It's the same thing.
Off topic for a bit. It's okay.
It's integrally related. It's about NTJs and... But yeah, what do you think? We could talk about that, what we looked at there. Because it relates directly to this paragraph, that it's about this contingency planning and looking for pitfalls, possible pitfalls. And I think you once in another hangout gave examples of that with your website and your business as you're looking for potential problems.
I feel like I'm so geared on like when I'm constructing something is I want to see it, to be able to see all the potential ways in which it can fail so I can address those right now so that when I put this plan into action, the probability of failure is going to be a lot lower because I've already thought about them and addressed them.
Right, and so that fits in directly with the way that Galenko defined his functions was, would say, the differences between INFJ and INTJ, and INTJ does that where they're a negativist and they will look at minimizing the negatives. And so like in your thought process, choose the course of action that minimizes these negatives because you're planning into the future. It's all about contingency planning. So
yeah. Yep. Can you scroll up, por favor?
Yep. Here we go. So, and this is the same for, right, yeah, the bit in purple is the same as the other rationals. Or NTs. I've not read that bit in the book yet about intersections and intervals of time. So, like I said, there's lots of people on the internet who think that David KEIRSEY dumbed down typology, and it's like, you've not read his books. He has a different kind of complexity in his books. Should I say something about Utilitarian and how they implement their goals?
No, Ben, you can't say anything.
Okay.
Yes, of course. Come on.
I was just wondering if you would like me to explain a bit about that, because it's not something that's self.
Give your input. I'm just sitting here reading. I mean, you're really directing this train, so.
Okay, what it means by that is it's exactly how you are with your approach to fitness theory. It's like it's either cooperative or utilitarian. And you encounter a lot of people who are cooperative, and it's like, this is the way you do it, and you're like, no, the NASM's crap. This is how you do it. I'm thinking for myself. And the idea is that the SPs and the NTs think for themselves, and the SJs and the NFs go along with the cooperative. Now, the one that's interesting to think about this is NFs.
I was just going to say, a few NFs that I know would get pissed off at you for saying that.
But you see, ultimately, or it's like with them, is they want everyone else to agree with them. Like with politics, it's like they want everyone to agree with them. And they ultimately want people to be cooperative with each other. The group thing. Like imagine like the NF group thing that you have on universities. NTs wouldn't want, oh, everyone has to say the same thing, and if you do want to talk, go over there in the corner in your little free speech zone. Whereas NFs would be like, no, we've all got to be on the page, we've all got to be together, harmonious, but in our way. So there is that little contradiction there with NFs. It is a little bit nuanced, where they're a little bit hypocritical on that point, I believe. And it's more the NFPs than the NFJs. That's something I've noticed.
Can you scroll up?
Yep. Oh, got anything to say about this?
Well, nothing I disagree with.
Okay.
That's probably more. I'm trying to pick out things I disagree with. Is my negative nature again.
Negativist. That's a dichotomy in socionics, reigning dichotomy. So yeah, the idea here is directive. Maybe I could say something about directive and informer. The dichotomy that David KEIRSEY came up with himself, and then Linda Berens then used it, but of course credited him. I've got her book on interaction styles, and she credited David KEIRSEY coming up this in the 1980s. This is a dichotomy that doesn't exist in socionics, because the socionics reigning dichotomies, they were created by this mathematician called Grigori Reinin, and they were sort of like deductively, I was about to say deductively deduced. Well, but deduced from the Jungian dichotomies. Then they're a little bit, there's some truth in there, but they're not 100% brilliant in my opinion. And some are better than others, but negativist, positivist. But anyway, getting back on track. So this is the idea that NTJs, when they interact with people, and perhaps you can talk about this, where it's like the NTJs, they direct people. It's like they're just more directive in their interactions. Whereas I think you once said to me like recently, in a private conversation about, oh Ben, like you know about not wanting to impose things like that. Maybe you could tell that story if you want to.
Wait, which story?
Suggest things.
No, you're cutting out. Ben, you're cutting out.
Oh, sorry. How about now?
Yeah.
Right, do you want to tell that
Okay,
story? Do you want to talk a bit about that?
No, that's the thing. I didn't hear like what story you're talking about.
Oh well, you know, the thing is, if I tell you what the story is, then you can't tell it. Oh, I'll try and stop. Do I need to? Have I all gone all? Do I need to stop the shares? I'm back. I'm back. I say, is my sound okay again?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so you could tell the story about maybe you can see that different dichotomy between us. Maybe how you're directive and I'm more informing.
I have no idea what story you're talking about. You gotta help me out here.
Okay. A few days ago, you said to me, Ben, oh, you're something the way you. I won't say the word that you use. You can like say that word if you want to. Like I suggested something, and I said something like, so Hailey, maybe we could do this, and then you said, oh, you like that quality.
Oh, how you don't want to seem like you're imposing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, go on.
Okay, guys, whenever Ben and I are on video chat and it comes time to end the video chat, we always schedule the next one. And I've noticed in Ben that whenever it gets to that time, like I always know that he's going to ask, okay, so, you know, when schedule for next time. But the way, Ben, the way you go about it, it's like way up to it. Like you don't want to seem like you're imposing, like, oh, I don't want to ask her because if she's busy, I don't want to seem like I'm imposing. And you just kind of like, the way you ask, and if it was me, I'd just be like, all right, bro, when's the next time? Like, when are we hanging out? Let's get this scheduled. And
that's your difference between directive and informing.
Yep. Is that water?
It's Lemsip, which is like, because I've got someone who likes Lemsip. Now, unfortunately, it does contain your favourite carcinogen, aspartame, but it only has a little bit.
Huh.
But I've got an ear, nose, and throat infection, so I feel like I have to. But I have fixed the habit of the iron brew, and I do refer to it now as a cancer can, and I have maybe one of those a week. So, one cancer can a week.
I think that is a wonderfully accurate description, but do you know why I would label it as a cancer can, Mr. Ben?
Well, I had a look at our aspartame, and it's bad. It's really bad, and it should not have been cleared.
So, folks, in the case of Ben Vaseline, do as I say, don't do as I do.
I have one can a week.
Yes, back to what
When I was doing these with somebody else, we did like 1 90-minute hangout per paragraph. Because I was doing that with Hannah and INFP, and went into like super depth. Oh yeah, we did that directive, and oh yeah, this is the idea that the little quirks in KEIRSEY where he has the temperament and then he has types. He called them role variants because it's like the role and the type sort of merge together into a role variant. Because like now Dario would say that yes, but you can still differentiate, say, a type and their role. So for instance, you can have like a thinking female that becomes a mother, and they will develop more of a feeling side than say a thinking female that doesn't become a mother. So the role will have some effect on the personality type. But if people look closely, they can say, so for instance, they can say, oh, Hailey's a model. Like when they just see it in that aspect, they don't see other aspects of your life. But you say, yeah, but if you look closely, you see the INTJ-ness. It depends how closely people look. So yeah, so this is the idea that INTJ can do the field marshal thing, but the main role variant is as mastermind in terms of like planning things into the future. But they could like act like an ENTJ, but it would take a bit more effort than their natural way of doing things, which would be as the mastermind role.
Yeah, I agree. Being in that ENTJ position, I don't necessarily care for, but if I'm doing like a project I really care about, and especially like if the group, basically, which I fucking hate group work, I hate it, but right, I'm sorry, I'm going to state my opinion and what I think needs to be done, and what I think this person needs to do this. And I mean, I'm not going to be a bitch about it. I'm going to explain to everyone why, like, I think this person should do this because it would be the most efficient, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what I enjoy doing.
I would say field marshal. So that's, yeah, ENTJ. And so when you're actually thinking about your business, then maybe you're in that, when you're like, you know, like the things that you talked to me about, that when you're in that mode, in fact, things that you said publicly about when you're talking about regulations, when you're in like the business ENTJ mode of like dealing with the logistics of the here and now, a bit more practical than the long range master plan. And then here the idea, architect is INTP, this role. So for instance, you can have like INTJ is in doing the same thing as INTP is, in terms of like their role variant of like designing systems. And then like the role variant of inventor, which is ENTP. So this is more like, so you can have INTJ inventors. So KEIRSEY named the ENTP the inventor because he thought, okay, with all this NE, they have all these ideas. And so so probably Steve Jobs was probably an ENTP. Otherwise, Douglas Adams. I'll tell you, the poster boy for ENTP, and you may have heard of this guy, Nikola Tesla.
Of course.
Now, he was also, I would say, 200% genius, 10% con man, because he did say he could create a death ray that would destroy whole armies. Nikola Tesla and his death ray. All right, there we go. Oh yeah, and these
okay, shall we?
Yes, if you want to go on that weird notes, having to go at someone, it's best not to ask about that. This was about a person who thinks they're an INTJ, but I don't believe is an INTJ. So.
Well, what type do you think he is?
ISFP.
Okay. You know, I mean, are they as far as their function stack? Are they like? Because I know one of my videos at one point in time, someone was like, "Oh, you're not an INFJ, you're either an INTJ or an ISFP." And at that point, of course, like they look. I really don't know much about the ISFP and their function stack, so.
Well, it's the same 4 valued functions because it's the gamma quadra. So, for instance, if you think of if you get your 4 functions in reverse. So, for instance, if you go to your inferior, which is SE, and then your tertiary, which is FI, and then your auxiliary, which is TE, and then your dominant, which is NI. If you list them like that, you get ESFP. And the way Dario wrote about ESFP in his book, it was like he wrote about the ESFP like it was the most brilliant person ever. And he's talked about how he's developed more extroverted sensing. So I don't want to really talk about that because we've got a little bit of a time limit. So, but yeah,
Okay,
Dario
yes,
really
yes.
So if we go on to the next one, so rarely encountered outside the office. Right. So scan number 2. We don't want to get too distracted. Right. Oh, manipulative just means inferior. It's just what Victor calls the inferior, and it might be a translation thing. Function. Is that inferior function that people can be manipulated through the inferior function because they're suggestive in that area. So, for instance, maybe you might be able to manipulate an INTP by giving them a lot of charm.
Yeah, preferring to stay in the background until others demonstrate their inability to lead.
Or maybe they try and do all this NASM stuff and you say, I'm not having this. Then you try and take over.
Oh, yeah, or that. There you go.
Concrete examples. So yeah, if anything like for instance, real life anecdotes, like things that maybe you've seen in your father, yourself, or other INTJs, any things that spring to mind. Oh yeah, there's a real gold. I'll let you read this carefully. There's some real gold in this page. Come on, I need.
So, do any other types? Authority based on degrees, credentials, title, etc. does not impress them. Any other types? Can you share this?
Okay, SP. Like I said, the SPs and the NTs.
How prevalent is the SP in our lovely world population?
Whether about 20, but you see, the thing is, the INTJ is the #1 type. Tell everyone about it if they don't agree with something. because functionally they're known as like FE break. Like we talked about this before, where you will say exactly what you feel because PR is low down on the list for most INTJs. Now, of course, that can get really unhealthy where they end up alienating themselves from a lot of people. But as I've said before, the redeeming feature of the INTJ is that with the people that they are close to, they're extremely loyal because they have that FI.
Yeah.
And they're not about being fake at all. They hate fakeness. And in fact, and if you were to ask most INTJs what they think of FE, they would say, it's phony and it's like that sort of thing. That they might say, it's being nice just for being nice sake, that it's not authentic. They would say, and then if they say things like that, you go, okay, yeah, I believe you're an INTJ. So it's like, you see, these sort of things are not in normal MBTI, so it's not like they've read it and they're supposed to say that. So you can sort of use socionics knowledge to one's advantage.
So what about the ENFP?
Oh, see, they are a tricky one. They are a tricky one. They are tricky because Model G, they are NEFE. They use FE creatively because KEIRSEY called them the champion, and then he called them the advocator. So basically, they use FE to bring people to their cause. Because ultimately, if you're an extrovert and a feeler, your feelings will be extroverted because your attention is directed to the outside world, and if you're a feeler, your attention will be directed to other people's feelings. Ultimately, you care more about your own, but you are aware of other people. And it's the same with ESFPs. So it's like they're aware of it, and until it clashes with one of their values, they will like do their own crazy FP thing. No offense to ESFPs and ENFPs.
This little bit.
Go on.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Just this little bit. They tend to be much more self-confident than other rationales. Usually, a very strong will. Yeah, there's only a handful of people that I would say that I know for a fact are an INTj, and every single one of them, I mean, power is just crazy, crazy strong. Yeah.
How about that bit in the middle in orange? The bit that starts, they will adopt ideas only if they're useful.
Yeah.
And that really makes the distinction between this type and INTP. Because INTP is...
And this is along those lines of the INTP being a mile wide and an inch deep, and the INTJ being, yeah,
a little bit, but I'll give it a little bit.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah, and myself. So, NTPs do tend to go towards ideas that they find interesting. Although INTPs have that little, I have that little voice in the back of our minds going, "Dude, not very practical," but it's like, oh, it's interesting.
Oh goodness, yes. Yep. You want to scroll down just a tad.
So, like I said, folks, if you like. This makes it concrete. It doesn't say, oh, they have TE, but like we can label this TE. And I think that's an excellent, just those two couple of sentences. They will adopt ideas only if they're useful, which is say they work efficiently towards achieving well-defined goals. Only ideas that make sense to them are adopted, those that aren't. That defines concrete, clear, what it looks like in the real world.
Wow.
That bit in the middle. So which bit made you go, wow?
These traits of character lead them to occupations where theoretical models can be translated into actuality. Man, yeah.
You do that, all right? You are physical proof of that.
Yeah, I guess. So what's this NI.5?
Well, it basically means, that's basically I'm putting, this is extremely NI. It's not just NI, it's NI.5. So like 150% NI.
Gotcha. Okay, we have, what, 40 minutes left?
Yep.
This is my...
One more page.
Okay. I'll say what I'm thinking after this page then.
Okay. Oh no, if you want to say it now, I'm fine with that.
Well, I mean, I think this is a big wanting to know more about the INTJ. I mean, does this have any bit about INTJs and relationships, or like, I mean, this is my
that's
sexual
on the next page.
Yeah, stay tuned, folks. We're getting there.
So is there anything you want to say about this page?
INTJs are the highest achievers in school of all the types. That's funny. I remember this one English class I had. I was so pissed off because the only reason I got the second highest grade in the class was because assignment. I actually transferred into this class, and the first assignment that I was given, I completed it, but my dumbass forgot it at home, and I still made the teacher read it anyway, even though I wasn't going to get a grade on it. But that 1-0 for the whole semester, I was like head to head with this one guy, and I lost it because of that. And I was so pissed. But what did number 1 get that I didn't get? He got a bigger chocolate bunny than I got.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's it. But okay, next page, I guess.
Right, okay. Okay, another. But so my favorite line in this is INTJs submit every idea to the test of usefulness. There, subject every idea to the test of usefulness. All right. This is where it gets good. This is where it gets good. And this is where I've tagged it as FE break. So an example of weak FE. Is one of the benefits of writing profiles this way is that you're not looking at the type through the lens of functions. And so it's, because if you think too much in terms of functions, you will only see those bits that match the functions and you will ignore other things.
Yeah, I remember in one of Michael Pierce's videos, he discussed how it's like people seem to forget about that FI in the INTJ, and he goes on to discuss how it's like a driving force in the INTJ. Like that's what ultimately,
yeah.
No, I don't want to say makes him tick, but it's a really pack.
Yep. Yeah, the TE and the FI working together in terms of the FI being what you value, and then the TE being the ability to implement it, and then also the FI working with the NI in terms of values, and then the values will influence how what you vision going forward. So, for instance, with your plan in future, but the FI being that I want people to learn this in the right way because this will be the best thing for my customers. FI value of, you know, I want to help them make money as well, but I really want to help these people.
Exactly. Yeah. So whereas, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't the ENTJ be, I mean, if this was his main goal, like he would put that on the back burner just so he could revenue?
It depends on the maturity, because like the third and fourth functions, tertiary and inferior, it depends on their level of mental health and personal development.
Okay.
So I'd like your thoughts on that sausaged, the purple sausage at the top there. What you think of that little?
What?
The purple sausage, the oblong, I suppose. What I've like put it in like a purple cloud, where it starts with colleagues and ends within the system.
Oh yes, yes. I apologize. Yeah, I mean, last few weeks, and trying to sound like a bitch or anything. I've had a few people, guys, message me, and I mean, I'm sorry. I'm so busy. I don't really have time to sit there and gab at him all day. And like this one dude, I told him, I'm like, look, you're gonna have to go and find a new pen pal, because I don't, like, I'm sorry, but I just don't have time to sit and message you all day. And I mean, thinks I'm just being really cold, or, you know, it's just been described as a lot. To criticism from their fellow workers does not bother them. Yeah. Take a look at my Instagram page, folks. Yeah, it really doesn't.
Yeah, but you have more people skills than the average INTj. Like Dario actually called young INTJs obnoxious, and so he doesn't like to communicate with them. But you see, you're in various fields
what would
where
that
you
be attributed to?
Oh, lack of FE, where it's just like, and they get to a point where, as we said before, I believe INTJs are good on the inside. Well, if if you first meet them, they have this FE break, then it's going to be very difficult for people to learn to get to know them long enough in order to get to the inside. So, for instance, with us, you were able to connect with me with the Dario video. You know, because you watched that video and you liked it, and then so that sort of created an initial bridge.
Yep. Okay. Not at the cost of having a submissive mate. Thank you.
So this is the idea that, and this matches socionics, that they are SE suggestive, so they want a partner with a bit of oomph. Say that the dual partner for the INTJ would be ESFP. Now, that's the theory. My personal opinion is that you would need to be an ESFP with an intellectual side, and the INTJ would have to be developed so that they want a little bit of a wannabe party goer in there as well, so that like the two complete each other. And so duality might work better when both are a little older and they complete each other. Because otherwise it'd be just too different from each other.
Now, okay, I think you already know I'm going to ask this. What about an INTJ and an INTJ? What do you think about that, Mr. Ben?
Well, the socionics
or the phrase that we supposedly eat the other. Have you ever heard that?
Eat the other?
Yes, like we
spiders?
No, the phrase it's not that exactly. Are at each other's throats all the time.
Well,
and I've only go ahead.
The KEIRSEY theory is that people find each other based on, like, the NTs are attracted to each other and you have mind mates. The NFs have soul mates, so they can be all NFE together and talk about their feelings. The SJs are health mates, and so they can, like, you know, be on time and, like, judgy and complain about the neighbours and, you know, like, do their judgy things. And then the SPs are, what do they call them? Playmates. He called them playmates. They like go out and have fun together. But you see, so you double up on the strengths, but the weaknesses are not helped with. Now, socionics would say the best match for an INTP for ESFJ. J can like do all the housework and then also talk intellectual things. What the idea is behind the division of labour, I suppose, between their mutual strengths and weaknesses. But you see, what you could have, though, I mean, if we're talking about practicalities, you could have two INTPs, male and female, and they both could afford a maid, and so there don't need to be any arguments over housework.
Well, I mean, my INTJ mind just does not. I mean, there's never going to be a maid coming in my house. So, I mean, I know this is case by case basis, obviously. Like you said, such and such type will do the housework while the INTJ, you know, like it balances. But I mean, in my case, I think, or possibly because of certain things I won't do, like bringing a maid in, I'm perfectly fine with cleaning it myself. Like, you know, just case by case basis. Of course, you can't really say this type will work well with this type because, I mean, anything can really happen.
Right, then another thing about the FE break, not emotionally expressive. Towards people who are more like casual acquaintances, things like that, or like strangers. There's like not much expression. And then we recorded a video together to prove how you can be different at closer psychological range and a bit more playful, to use your term.
Yeah. INTjs may communicate the time is wasted if used for idle chit chat. Like some guys who message me just want to sit around and talk about nothing all day. I can't do that. For privacy, yeah. Full contact except the chosen few. I Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say something, and then I saw a word, and I thought, oh, that's not relevant. Right. Right.
Now, what do you think about? I mean, this would fall more into like, okay, the sexual self-pres. That's not Enneagram. That's like what would we title that?
You see, that is a little tricky thing. Is Reeser and Hudson thought it was a separate system. However, other Enneagram authors see that as a subtype of the Enneagram type. So, for instance, I would call myself Enneagram 4 Wing 5. There's XSSO subtype. And your Enneagram 5 Wing 4 SXSP subtype. And so
the third.
Yeah, because it's because it's like we know what it is.
I mean, right, yeah. Of course.
And there's a book where, I mean, initially Reeser and Hudson were like, I mean, their book's like 20 years old, and I know what Hailey calls old books. She has a little term for old books.
What does Hailey call old books?
Well, or old studies. Studies, when you talked about old, like, trophy.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a particular phrase you use.
I don't even remember.
Old ass.
Oh, old, yes. Old ass studies. There it is.
And I bet you thought that when I posted like some grabs from this nutrition book written in the 80s, you're probably thinking, oh, old ass stuff.
Well, you know, some of the older studies, of course, if it's not something that's been proven, you know, you take it with a grain of salt anyway. But for the most part, I won't criticize studies so much like on, because, you know, the body isn't really changing much in 20 years. But other things, that's where I have an issue reading here for all that. Masterminds are deeply emotional, even romantic types. Yes, okay, so what I was getting at here is even romantic types, is this geared more at the sexual preservation? I mean, I'm sure there are obviously self-pres dominants who are romantic, but I mean, would you say as a rule generally sexual or more so?
This is where Enneagram can help. It's like the level of health. I mean, it's like personal circumstances. Like, I mean, if the INTJ doesn't have, like I said, because of their persona, it's going to be difficult for people to get to know them. And generally, it's going to be like, I mean, generally, you want to talk to, say, guys who have like an abstract interest in things and easy to meet them. Imagine what it's like for, you know, certain INTJs. It's hard to meet people with similar interests. And so They are, and so they can get mentally unhealthy towards people in general, and that's when they become like schizoid. But you know, the healthy INTJs do have that sort of like inner NF emo closet nerd type aspect to them, where they work on that function, or what we would tag as that function. Because I just see the functions as a convenient shorthand and a model which is effective.
Yeah.
So how about that? I mean, that do you think that's a wicked well-fitting paragraph?
I do. Yeah, definitely. And then that little last bit, almost hypersensitive to signals of rejection from their loved one. Wow, yeah.
Yep, we've done videos on that.
Yeah, see, and I talked about this in one of my last videos, how I think I'm going to be as a parent. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like obviously it's a big thing, right? But I have going on now, I wouldn't even think about having kids right now. I mean, let alone, I don't even know if I'm ever going to meet someone. But if that day ever comes, I feel like my whole life will turn from everything else to my kids, and I will be so like, this is my blood, full attention, and it almost scares me. Like, I don't want to have a business and so many other things I'm going to be focusing on while I have kids. Like, that will bother me. So
it would have to be up and running, and it might be difficult because you'd have to get through the dollar collapse and the bad economy that's going to happen for the next 10 to 15 years. Sorry, folks, but it's going to happen. And it's all right. We're on the cusp. We're on the cusp. Early next year. Expect it to happen next year, folks. Some bad stuff going on. Right. Ben, I'm starting a business. I do not want to hear that truth. Right, so any more for you to read on here, or have you taken that in?
Taking it in.
Right then, so what we could do is you could give me your thoughts on this, and then we could knock out a video that's 5 to 10 minutes on on the inside the head of the INTJ. You know that comedy diagram thing?
Yeah. Okay.
We could do that in a separate hangout. But yeah, what do you think overall of that KEIRSEY INTJ profile and how well it matches you?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty spot on. Just looking through it, trying to find faults in it, and I really didn't find many at all. So yeah, great.
That's it. Thank you very much. So what we'll do now is you can end this hangout and then start another one, and we'll do like 5 to 10 minutes. The comedy inside the head of the INTJ, and there's some funny things in there.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
All right, guys, it's a bye for me. Thanks for watching, and yeah, we're gonna make another video soon. So, Ben.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.